And we're live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Ask Me Anything. My name is Drew Clark, editor and publisher of Broadband Breakfast, and I'm joined here with William Davidson, Director of Strategic Initiatives at NextEra Infrastructure Solutions. Welcome, William.
Thanks, Drew. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I am really excited to speak about this nexus, if you will, between energy and infrastructure. And you've been on both sides of that divide, William, right? NextEra Energy and NextEra Infrastructure, which of course is your current role, Director of Strategic Initiatives there. But first, I think it bears noting how connected these two topics are. And it hasn't really seeped into the popular consciousness just yet. How important, I think it hasn't, how important the next era or the next generation infrastructure of broadband is for the next generation infrastructure of electricity transmission, electricity generation, and you know, probably the one person who's kind of forcing these issues together in a really positive way is our own President Joe Biden, right? I mean, he's been really hammering how important the initiatives and the investments that are going forth under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which of course what we talk about all the time, the broadband developments, the broadband infrastructure, but how important the green energy investments that were facilitated by the Inflation Reduction Act, which passed basically less than a year after IIJA was passed, these major investments. And I just got in my inbox earlier this morning, in case you missed it, Biden-Harris administration announces largest ever investments in electric grid infrastructure, and it's a long list of 3.46 billion in funding to strengthen power grid resiliency and reliability across America. And so I guess that is really my first question for you, William, is what are some of your thoughts about the connections between strengthening our broadband infrastructure and strengthening our electric and our smart grid infrastructure?
Yeah, well, thanks, Drew. They go hand in hand. We here at NextEra, we're the largest renewable power producer in the country, and those sites across the country need fiber for their communication systems. And so by bringing fiber out to those areas, you're getting better data. You're able to track it better, and then we'll also be able to bring that broadband infrastructure back to the world and provide fiber to the home, right? So marrying the two through the IIJA and the IRA are super important, right? You're getting the funding and the policy behind it to drive that growth and drive that penetration to the areas that need it most. It's certainly on the broadband side, it's become a case of the haves and have-nots, and getting the infrastructure to a point where it's not like the electricity world was 100 years ago. Right now, you've got very forgotten communities. You've got unserved and underserved communities in areas that you wouldn't even think so. They may be considered high growth areas, but the infrastructure hasn't caught up. And so by leveraging both of these, both the administration's bills and policies, using both to stretch out and reach as many people as possible to provide them not only with clean energy, that's clean, cheap, and efficient, but also then with the broadband infrastructure that allows them to operate at a level essential for living in the 21st century.
Well, let's give you a chance to tell both a little bit about yourself and a little bit about NextEra Energy and Infrastructure. And obviously a key player in this is Florida Power and Light. So for those outside of Florida, we may just think, oh, that's just another little power company in a state, and clearly it's not. So who is Florida Power and Light, and what role do they play in the NextEra world, William? Hello?
Looks like William may have frozen. We'll just give him a second to hopefully.
Okay. William, can you hear me? Obviously, we need better broadband. William, can you hear me? I asked a question about Florida Power and Light. Tell me if you can hear us. Well, we're going to keep trying here. Looking forward to seeing if we can get William back to talk a little bit more about NextEra Energy, NextEra Infrastructure, and starting with the Florida Power and Light story, because Florida Power and Light is a subsidiary of NextEra, and William's work in the area is very, very expansive, but it's worth highlighting that Florida Power and Light is just a very significant energy producer, and as William said just a little bit earlier, it's I think he said it was the number one. I'm going to confirm this when he's back on, but the number one provider of renewable energy. So I definitely want to knock that down or confirm that when we can get William back. While we're stalling for time, let me mention that we have some exciting upcoming Ask Me Anything events. We've had we've had a lot this month. We had Matt Schmidt, the Illinois State Broadband Officer, 2 weeks ago, and next week we're going to have Jason Rudin, the founder of CLAD, and I don't know what CLAD is, but fortunately I don't have to know because Jace Wilson will be leading that discussion, and I think there's a lot there, and go to the page and sign up for it. And then in 2 weeks from now, we're going to have Josh Broder, the CEO of Tilson, and Tilson has become a very significant player in the broadband infrastructure space through working with a lot of projects, a lot of middle mile, a lot of last mile projects, and looking forward to both of those AMAs in the next 2 weeks. I know we're working hard to get our guest back here, and while we're waiting, I'm just going to kind of call out some of the themes that we are going to speak about when we get William back. And one question is like the politicization of renewable energy, and I'm certainly eager to get William's take on how we can kind of tone down the rhetoric around renewable energy. We all know we have to get more green energy. We have to reduce the carbon footprint, but by how much and at what cost? These are always the questions that we need to get at. And William comes from a background of the smart energy, smart infrastructure, but he's moved into the space of NextEra Infrastructure Solutions. And again, for those of you who are watching us here, make sure to check out the profile of William Davidson that we posted on broadband.io here in the broadband community. He oversees the company's fiber infrastructure investments and advances those. And again, one of the other areas I'm going to want to get into is kind of the role of open access or wholesale infrastructure networks, and what role NextEra plays in that capacity. So for example, some of the work that NextEra has done is partnering with many fiber builders in Florida and elsewhere. In the profile, William said that we don't think of ourselves as being open access in the traditional sense, but it is important in terms of getting more capacity or using some of that capacity in the network. I hope we're working to make progress on getting William back.
William is restarting the router. Hopefully it'll be back momentarily.
Rebooting the router. Okay. Well, so while we continue this quest for time, or this work to, and thanks for sticking with us. We're keeping our numbers there. Thank you for being here, being a part of this. Don't forget, you can still ask questions of William Davidson, and we're focusing, of course, in this Ask Me Anything on that nexus between the smart grid, the smart infrastructure, renewable energy, and broadband infrastructure. And you know, he's very well equipped to talk about the transition to renewables, as well as to close the digital divide. So, for example, in the profile that we published of William earlier this week, he says wind farms and solar farms are generally not in densely populated urban settings. They're generally out in rural parts of the country. And this kind of brings back to that very first question that I started with, right? Like, there is a big need for infrastructure, and not just infrastructure in the broadband sense, we need that, but also infrastructure in the electric transmission, particularly sense, these big lines, right? And I don't pretend these are the same issues. They're not completely the same issues. They're different rights of way issues that need to be sorted out in last mile or even middle mile deployments of broadband, and the high voltage transmission capacities, high voltage transmission capabilities. But we do see these issues, right? And so this has been politically interesting to watch, because the Biden administration has weighed in favor of the construction of more transmission grids, because they are needed to get that electricity from the places that it's being produced, right? Like the wind farms, the solar farms, to the places where it's being consumed. And William, I'm glad to see you back. We've basically been recapping what you told us in the profile about the work you've done and the open access wholesale component. And I just touched upon the transition to renewable energy. But let me let you go back to Florida Power and Light's story, who they are, and what your story is in interacting with this very significant utility.
Yeah, so it's actually where I started my career here at NextEra. I started here in 2014. I came in as a regulatory affairs analyst. So worked through a multitude of dockets and matters in front of the Public Service Commission, primarily need determinations, 10-year site plans, as well as the 2016 rate case. But Florida Power and Light is a major component of our company, and really works to deliver exceptional service, not only in terms of delivering electricity to people's homes, but also on customer service as well.
And what's the renewable story with Florida Power and Light? Did you say they're the largest producer of renewable energy? Is that correct?
So NextEra Energy Resources is, but in general, our company has set a goal. We call it Real Zero. And NextEra Energy as a whole is the first company in history to be committed to moving past net zero to an actual real zero. So using low cost renewables to drive that energy affordability.
Can you hear me, William? William, can you hear me? Ben, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, great. All right. I don't know if I faded for a moment. So you were just making the point that NextEra is not just net zero, but real zero. Is that what you were
Real
saying?
zero, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where else is NextEra active besides Florida? Again, sticking with energy just for another moment or two.
Yeah, no, yeah, we are in we're almost across the entire country in almost every state. We have a market cap of almost $150 billion, $160 billion in total assets. So that's renewables, that's transmission, that's electric providers. It's a very large footprint, and because of that, we are able to touch a large portion of the country with the products and the services that we have. That's why we see partnering with here at NextEra Infrastructure Solutions and our fiber entity, Next City Networks, the opportunity to really stretch and meet the rural broadband and underserved broadband needs of the country.
Mm-hmm. So
we have
no, please continue.
Yeah. No, so we have the familiarity with building in rural America and in areas where the infrastructure hasn't reached the communities or hasn't kept up with growth. So as cities have expanded out, into past the initial ring roads and past the double ring roads, into suburban and ex-urban America, as well as then even further rural areas, the infrastructure not only for roads and such, but certainly broadband hasn't followed or hasn't caught up or hasn't been able to keep up. And I think one thing that showed through the COVID pandemic is that it became an essential utility, much like water and electricity. And so as a large producer of electricity, not only for the home, but for other entities across the United States, we feel we're well situated to come and help solve that issue and close that digital equity gap.
So let's talk specifically about the transition, or again, NextEra Energy is still very much there. You're just on the NextEra Infrastructure Solutions. So what is NextEra Infrastructure Solutions? And you also mentioned another entity. I think it was Smart Cities or Cities. Could you just speak about those two units?
So NextEra Infrastructure Solutions is a grouping of entities that focus more on the dry utility. So it's a couple of different entities. It's Next City Networks, which is our fiber entity. It is our NextEra Lighting and Metering Solutions group. It is our energy services team. And so what we're able to do is come in and provide those ancillary services to communities, municipalities, smaller utilities and energy cooperatives to really help them become more efficient, save costs, increase revenue, and make sure that they're able to provide the best service possible to their residents and constituents.
So are you the owner of the infrastructure assets? Are you the builder? How would you kind of characterize your piece in that?
We're builders and long-term owners and operators of the infrastructure. We at NextEra, whether it's a wind farm, a transmission line, an electric utility, or a fiber network, we plan to be the owners for the long term. And so we believe in being good stewards of those projects in the community. But yeah, we believe in being builders, owners, and operators.
Now, we're gonna circle into a number of the questions we've got, and remember to keep your questions coming. We can still get them. We can still include them. But tell just a little bit about you and your background. Where are you from, and how did you get from New York City's Office of Emergency Management to Florida Power and Light and then NextEra?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in New York City. Depending on who you're talking to, sometimes considered a very rare breed of people. But grew up there, spent most of my life there, and went to law school and came out and had the opportunity to work as in-house counsel at the New York City Office of Emergency Management, which was a very small agency for the city, but a very progressive, forward-thinking, agile agency that was in charge of coordinating any and all responses to events, emergencies, and other such actions within the city of New York. So whether it was the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, a building collapse, a gas main explosion, or Hurricane Sandy, our office was the epicenter of those coordination efforts. And then also I served there as in-house counsel, but also as a planning section chief in the Emergency Operations Center. And it became a great training ground to work on a lot of different matters, a very fast, sometimes in a very fast paced and high stress environment, as well as working on building relationships across numerous other agencies, whether it was the New York Police Department, Fire Department, DEP, federal partners, state partners. And so it really was a great training ground to start building those skills. And then wound up moving down to Florida in 2014, as luck may have it, and was fortunate enough to start working at Florida Power and Light in the regulatory affairs group. Had always been interested in policy and regulatory work from my time as well, and working for the city, and had the opportunity to work on the 2016 rate case, and I was the witness analyst for our power generation witness, and she spent a lot of her testimony talking about solar and battery, and figured that was probably a place to go find work in that field in the company. And it turned out to be a very fledgling group at the time. The solar team, the wind team was up and running, was doing thousands of megawatts a year at that time, and was lucky enough to get into the solar team and worked there for 5 years. Helping grow that team and working on internal due diligence of projects and making sure that the projects we took to market were environmentally sound, financially sound, and good for the community as well as for the company. Go ahead.
No, you finish. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, and then had the great opportunity to come over to NextEra Infrastructure Solutions and the Next City Networks and the fiber team to help get that up and running and help to start grow that business. It's quite an experience to work in a sort of a little startup type environment. And started here almost a little over 2 years ago. I think October 1st, 2021 was my first day on the fiber team, and we've been running and growing ever since.
Now, you mentioned the 2016 rate case. You've mentioned that a couple of times. Is that something we should know what that is? Like, what is the significance of the 2016 rate case?
Florida Power Light is a regulated utility, and they have to approve rates in front of the Public Service Commission, and they do it every 4 years or so. And so, working in regulatory affairs, that's sort of the big regulatory matter you'll work on at any given time. It's a lot of work. But it's very fulfilling, and you learn a lot about the company and how it works, and how all the different parts of utility come to play and bear in how the company goes and seeks approval.
I've got a lot of questions, but let's start to take questions from our audience. Brett Calder asks, are interest rate hikes and other dynamics making financials and closing the business case more challenging?
We actually have seen it, at least on our side of the business, on the fiber business. We've seen it as a bit of a benefit. We feel that with our market cap and our company's credit rating, we can build at a cheaper cost of capital than most people. So it's opened up opportunities for us to go out and partner with smaller providers who may not have the flexibility to go out and find cheaper capital, certainly at this time. And so it's enabled us to start partnering with a lot of people and help them expand and accelerate their network builds, and help them grow, help us grow across the market.
What are the capital constraints on NextEra? I mean, do you have less constraints than others? So hence interest rates hikes are less of a problem for you than for others. Is that kind of what you're saying, William?
Yeah, I think just from the type of the way we do business, and I think our company, while we haven't been unimpacted or unaffected, I think we still are weathering the storm a lot better than others.
Yeah. Scott Woods asks, what are some common themes or needs in communities that NextEra is expanding into?
I think broadband infrastructure is one of them. I think the ability to maintain their community identity, so providing them with those tools, and fiber is really the great growth driver, I think, of the 21st century. It used to be you needed to have a factory in your town to grow, but now with remote work and with telehealth and remote education, fiber broadband infrastructure is the essential infrastructure to allow that growth and that keeping the community together. Without it, students can't work remotely can't work on their college or high school work remotely, or even work on assignments or take lectures remotely. The speed and just isn't there. It's very hard for local economic development groups to bring in business if you're not able to provide them with the necessary bandwidth that they will need to run a business. And if you can't allow your citizens to work remotely, they won't live there. And so it can help drive your tax base. It can help grow your population. It can help you stem the diaspora of young adults leaving the community for what they see as better opportunities. And then it also offers you the ability to provide a safer and more communicated government and community. So you can connect all your school facilities. You can connect all your healthcare facilities. You can connect your 911 facilities, your fire department, your police department. You can connect your government to everyone. And for your local utilities, or your co-op that may be operating, you can provide them with a very secure network that handles a lot of data very quickly and allows them to run their network and run their business more efficiently. So whether you're attaching smart meters to it or you're running public Wi-Fi off your street furniture, you are enabling systems to run faster. You are able to track loss. You're able to make sure you're not losing revenue. Are your meters degrading? Are your truck rolls? Are you running too many truck rolls for maintenance costs? Right. Fiber serves as that backbone to provide the services and all the needs that your community may need.
Jace Wilson asks a question making the point that NextEra has one of the most extensive utility infrastructure asset bases in America. Could small, local, non-traditional providers leverage these assets to build out local broadband networks with some of the heavy lifting already done? What do you think about that? Love that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a core goal of ours, to leverage what the company has done and what they are also doing in the future to reach those communities and provide those small local providers the infrastructure and the acceleration to reach their goals, to reach more customers, and to provide for their communities. We work with we're provider agnostic. We're not tied to any one internet service provider. When we go out to a market, we work with we have some very good partners who we work with across multiple states. But we're happy to work with and want to work with those local providers. They know the community. They're tied in. They're providing the service to their neighbors, to their friends, to their family. And so by building out to those renewable farms, whether it's wind, solar, battery, or a combination of the three, we'll be able to keep that capital cost down as well, and provide all the upfront capital to build a fiber to the home network, but then also, because the capital is lower, provide that service provider with a lower monthly payment, and so they can also then pass those costs on to the end user.
So let's talk just a little bit about the flavors, okay, the various flavors of models, not just that NextEra is doing, but in general, right? And maybe that we can use Adam Puckett's question to springboard off this. He asks, what informed the decision to go to market the way you have? And he references Colorado, where we've seen almost every flavor of utility-led, as in Colorado Springs open access, municipal networks, as in Loveland, Pulse, Longmont, P3s, public-private partnerships, rural electric co-ops, right? I mean, out the Montrose Electric Co-op in Western Colorado. What is the way that you at NextEra Infrastructure approach kind of these various flavors of, we could call it open access, wholesale? Like, how does this all stack up, William?
Yeah, so I think we have our model. We have our goal is to come in and build a big network that is future proof. We generally work with one ISP on that network exclusively, but what we do is we then bring in a multitude of other services, wireless carriers. We provide opportunities for CNI, dark fiber and lit services on the network. Again, local utility, municipal use on the network as well. Our goal is to disrupt the community only once. We want to come in and make sure that we're not closing roads multiple times. We're not blocking businesses more than once. I think we went this direction using the model that is used for a lot of our renewable farms. The power purchase agreement, right? We build the infrastructure, we own it, and then we lease the capacity to someone. And so that helped shape our model, at least our contracting model, quite a bit. But we have the flexibility, and we do this across all of our business lines, to work with multiple different customer types. We work with CNI customers, we work with cooperatives, we work with municipalities, we work with large utilities, and so having the flexibility to go do that allows us to go and try a lot of different things and build to suit our customers' needs. We're not, we have solutions in our name for a reason. Our goal isn't to come in and mandate that it's going to be done one way. Our goal is to come in and build a turnkey solution that fits the community and the people going to be using it the best.
Okay. Can you speak, define your terms here? CNI, what is the CNI?
Oh, I'm sorry. Commercial and industrial customers.
Okay.
Your private businesses.
So who's more important, the rural co-ops or the commercial and industrial?
I don't think anyone's necessarily more important. I think there is a way to do this. The goal is to do it so that everyone can benefit. And that's why the very nature of our build works. There's enough capacity for everyone. Now, the cooperatives are important because the local communities are people who need the internet for their daily lives, right? Can they talk to their doctor remotely? Can they work from home if they have that ability? Can their students take their college courses and maybe work at the same time? The CNI, the commercial and industrial customers, are also important, right? Because you're providing jobs in the community as well. If you have we provide enough capacity for that community to bring in jobs. If it's a co-op, then maybe there's an opportunity to bring in a generative AI center, a data center, increasing tax base, right? So we build the network to support all the types of customers that are possible on that network.
And why do you say the preference is for a single ISP as opposed to kind of a more? I mean, you did say you're not opposed to open access, but like, why is your preference to have a single ISP?
Because we feel that you can get more reliable service. I think just from the way the market works, we see it as allowing one person to focus on the market, and keeping them, if you have 5 or 6 people fighting over the market, it's very, it will become difficult for them to stay in business. And our concern is having a lot of turnover on the network for the end user. We want a stable, reliable person, of provider serving the network. much like we do in our utility footprints, right? It's, it is customer service focused. It is reliability. We want someone to be there with us long term. We don't want to come in, bring in, flashy lights, and then have it all be gone in 2 years and it'd be a group of different providers. The idea is for consistency, customer service, and reliability.
Okay. Brett Calder asked another question. NextEra, I believe, holds various spectrum assets, what radio frequency spectrums. What is your take on public-private network deployments of presumably wireless spectrum extending fiber networks? Could you just speak about, like, is there a use case for wireless, and if so, what is that use case from your perspective, William?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't talk to the ownership of our spectrum, but I can talk to you about how we see it playing in our networks. Like I said, we're provider agnostic, and while we work with an ISP, we do also work to lease and provide capacity to the wireless carriers for 5G densification. We see it as a total package. You can provide fiber to the home, fiber to the premise networks. You're also providing that densification for cellular communications. You're allowing for the radio communications for your 911, for your fire, for your EMS. And then there is definitely going to be use cases where you may have to expand the hardwired system with a wireless either provider or capability on a hybrid network. In the end, you do need the fiber to support that. And again, it becomes what's the best solution for that community and for that area.
David Eckert asks, many smaller rural electric co-op operators have been reluctant to build broadband in the past, are in areas that are underserved or unserved, and hence they are right in the strike zone for BEAD and deployment under the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. How is NextEra enabling these operators to serve their communities?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So one, we provide power to a lot of co-ops across the country, and so one is through the method I've talked about already, which is we're building out our wind farms and our solar farms and our energy storage and our transmission facilities as well as many other types of facilities are spread out through their footprints. Right, we are building next to their next to their members or on their members' land, right? So we take those relationships very seriously. They serve a great purpose to provide electricity to the rural and underserved and unserved areas of this country. Through that, we can provide a fiber infrastructure along the lines when we build out to the farms, right? And again, working with those partners, whether it's attaching to their poles or working with their members, if they would like to be the ISP, there's an opportunity to white label service for them. Again, what's their need, what's their desire, and what's the best solution for them. But we see we're definitely we'll definitely be involved in BEAD, working with local providers, working with the co-ops who want to be that provider. But we also see this plan as an ability to allow state broadband offices to help stretch their money a little further. If I'm able to provide some of this infrastructure through a renewable capital program, and the grant that maybe the provider and NextEra put in for, maybe that saves, call it $10 million off a grant application. Well, that's $10 million more that the state then has to go build to another project.
Right.
NextEra and our partners while we want to go do as much as we can, obviously we're not going to be able to take every dollar in every state. So there's going to be other providers who are putting in for grants. This will allow states to do more projects, allocate more funds, and reach more people across their jurisdictions.
I know you've probably mentioned this several times, even here, and finally the light bulb clicked. This is very cool. Can you give us some examples of like where you've got some wind farms or solar, and like what you're doing along the route, right? Like literally on the way to the wind farm. Give it any examples, William?
I mean, it's hard to narrow it down to one. I mean, like I said, we're in about we're in 46 or 47 states, and we. But what we're able to do is, it enables us to make sure that all of that is delivered on time and on budget. We're able to leverage the capacity we have in terms of our crews to make sure that everything's getting done at a lower cost.
Right.
So this lower cost then gets passed on to the end users, and makes it more affordable. And allows for better service at a lower price.
Well, what's the typical way this rolls out? And by the way, I mean, is there a slowing or is it increasing of wind farms, for example, right? I hear different things from different people of, oh, it's already kind of maxed out, or no, there's a lot of room to grow. So like, what is the way the process works? Like, who approaches who in the build out along the route to one of these?
So we're continually talking to our colleagues in our renewable team. We're building to the farms regardless. Our team will be that provider to that farm for the SCADA system. We are then we are looking at we're doing our data and analytics. We're talking to our providers, our developers. We're talking to our ISP partners. We're looking for those opportunities where markets cross. There's a need. And there's the ability to supply.
Now, at the start of this, I kind of leveraged the Biden administration's investments in the green energy provisions of the Inflation Reduction Act, and there's been a lot of discussion about transmission rights of way. I mean, how significant from your perspective are those challenges and problems, and how are we going to work through those problems of kind of making sure there is the ability to get rights of way to build to wind farms and solar farms?
Yeah, I mean, I think each state's got its own nuances and rules. It would be great to be able to ensure that fiber could be attached to transmission lines across the country, regardless. Not just for utility communications. We try and build where we can in the right of ways. That enables a much faster, more unobtrusive approach. But yeah, look, I think being able to expedite rights of way access is always a major point of any large capital project. Certainly in rural areas where you may not be able to reach an area. Sometimes we have to even build our own roads to get to where the farms, the renewable projects will be, right? But that's a process that's project dependent a lot of the time, and we work through those as they come up.
I want to make sure we get back to some of these questions about clean energy, smart grid, green energy. Benjamin Kahn asked the question: what is your perspective on the role that non-renewable energy should play, if any? He asks, in your perspective, would America be best served by 100% renewable energy, or do you need, and this is actually something we have talked about with another AMA guest, Christine Hallquist, who is the state broadband officer for Vermont, but before that, she was the head of the largest cooperative energy producer in Vermont. And there's times the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, right? So how do you make sure you have other sources of energy? So both, I know that's a two-part question, like how low can we go in terms of non-renewable energy? What's the desirable amount? And any thoughts you have on making sure we get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I was in the renewable development team, we did a lot of battery storage projects, and a lot of our wind and solar projects are built with a battery storage system to to allow it to be dispatchable energy. I think everyone's needs are probably a little different. It's sort of hard to ask the person who works for a renewable energy company if they think renewable energy should be 100%. But I think it allows us. It provides certainly our group a unique opportunity to really reach the unserved and underserved areas of the country because of where these projects are built. The ability to build not necessarily near the load center provides us with a unique advantage in killing two birds with one stone, providing clean, efficient, and cheap renewable power, as well as high speed broadband internet to people who who haven't been able to get it in the past.
Let's talk also about the role of resiliency, environmental resiliency in both broadband deployment. That's a question asked by Craig Corbin, but also this question by Sushil Palakurti. She says, the questioner says, as a Floridian myself, what are the various solutions that Florida Power and Life / NextEra are implementing to improve the infrastructure and resiliency of Florida Power, especially after damage of hurricanes and floods?
Yeah, I mean, Florida Power and Light, they've got their resiliency plans, but for us, in terms of ensuring that our fiber stays up, we do a lot of undergrounding. We do a lot of co-building, whether it's in Florida or outside, right? So making sure that everything is done correctly and building. I mean, Florida Power and Light's resiliency and storm programs. There's a lot of information on that on their website, but it's obviously a key goal to make sure that the lights stay on and people are able to reach the internet, right? I mean, it's the main form of communication. One thing we're very cognizant of, especially when we build our networks, is making sure that the wireless networks are able to stay up. During Hurricane Ian, which was on the other coast and outside of territory, I think 97% of 911 calls were made were attempted through a cell phone, right? So ensuring that the fiber network that supports that network and that communication system is kept open. So as we design our networks, NextEra Infrastructure Solutions, we're very cognizant of making sure that we underground as much of the network as possible to make sure that it's resilient and a resilient network that never that stays up as much as possible.
Just taking Florida for a moment, what are some of the legal and regulatory factors that need to be taken in play in building out a network?
Yeah, I mean, I think not just Florida, but across every state's very different. And I think the one thing, especially with the grant process and the various different grants, but certainly BEAD, where all the states are going to be left to form their own rules and their own policies and procedures. So being aware and understanding the nuances of every state's rules, timelines, what they deem as the more important criteria. To me, that's the biggest, not necessarily an obstacle, but it's certainly the biggest thing to be aware of as we go forward into 2024 and 2025 as the BEAD program really gets going and the $42.5 billion is starting to be allocated. Is how does this state compare to the next state? I may have to do something different on my application here versus my application in the neighboring state.
What impact will the BEAD program, but also the Inflation Reduction Act that we've spoken about throughout this discussion, what impact will they have on meaningful improvement to the grid modernization? And if it won't, what is the cost, the monetary and or regulatory shortfall that needs to be addressed to have a meaningful impact on grid modernization?
Now, look, I think both will drive innovation. They'll drive newer technologies. I know, there's a big hydrogen push in the IRA. which will lead to more renewable and cleaner energy. Grid, in terms of the grid modernization, building fiber networks across areas where the infrastructure hasn't kept up will allow for local utilities, municipalities, to better serve their customers by leveraging the speed and the capacity that fiber can provide. They will be able to track poor performance, waste. They'll be saving energy on whether or not they need to roll trucks. So you're saving emissions. You have environmental impacts. You have revenue impacts as you're able to better track outages, and so it will lead to a more efficient network across the board. So you'll have cleaner, more efficient energy with better systems to track that data and analyze it in order to provide better service to your customers.
William, one thing we haven't talked about yet is the role of state broadband offices. We've always had many state broadband officers on this program, and they need tools. They need the ability to manipulate data, geospatial data, and challenge process data. Talk a little bit about how you would like the state broadband officers in the states in which you are operating to interact with NextEra, and also what you can do to help make their burden lighter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are working together and having open and honest conversations about how we can leverage what our company is doing to help them. It's again, we can build out to some of these areas, and we understand that there's other providers in your state. We can work with your local providers. I know that some states will have scores for local providers being the people who are supplying the internet. So being agnostic will allow us to help them reach those goals. Again, state by state, their goals will be different. Again, this is back to your regulatory question on what are the biggest hurdles. It's knowing what that state wants, but again, letting them know that we can help them stretch their dollar more. We can, by building out to another project of a different industry being built, we'll lower our grant ask and allow you to go allocate those funds somewhere else where that is not a possibility or it's not an option. And so just working with them and making sure that we understand what their goals are and who they want to be leading the charge in their state.
Here's a follow-up from David Eckert. As capital-intensive projects, what is the return on investment difference between deploying renewable power generation and deploying fiber broadband?
Oh, I couldn't say. I haven't. It's been a while since I've looked at a renewable model. I would say, but on the fiber side, because of the way we build our network and because we stack multiple different customer uses on top of each other, we can start the project at a much lower return than I think a lot of other providers across the country. And so that, I think, is a value proposition that allows lower costs to be passed on to the end user.
What are your software needs? What does NextEra Infrastructure need from a perspective of analyzing deployments and considering where you want to build? Yeah,
so I think it's a lot of times can we we have some very good partners on the data side. A lot of the time is the data I'm looking at up to date? Is it the most accurate? Has it been what type of data is it? Is it self-reported? Is it independent third-party research? Can I get it all in one spot? Can I get it so that I'm not having to go to 4 different sources to analyze the market? And then it's how quickly can that data be run to make sure that we're making the best decision in terms of the network we're building for the community and for ourselves.
I've tried to ask this question a couple of times. I'm going to try one more time here, but I'm going to give you a hint on this one. So, what are the pressing regulatory challenges for energy providers? Could you just sort of speak to those and maybe just lay out yes or no a challenge? So, are issues of rights of way and attachments, and is that an issue? Are regulations regarding emissions? What would you put as the top 2 or 3 pressing regulatory challenges for energy providers? Did you get that? You still there? Can you hear me?
I didn't, Drew. I'm sorry. I lost you after the first one.
All right. Let's just leave it open-ended. What would you say are the 2 or 3 biggest challenges? And I'm going to ask a 2-part: energy and infrastructure. What are the biggest regulatory hurdles and challenges that you at NextEra face when you're dealing with energy projects and when you're dealing with broadband infrastructure projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think every project is going to be a little different. I think it's based on the jurisdiction and state or area you may be in. I mean, sometimes it may be a land issue, sometimes it may be an environmental issue. It's really hard to narrow it down to 1 or 2 that are the biggest, right? I think, in my time in the development team doing due diligence, every project was very, very different, and depending on, you may have a tribal issue based on the state you're in, or you may have a waterway issue based on where you are, and so it's hard to really narrow it down. But the NextEra really prides itself in doing things the right way to make sure that any issue that does arise along those lines is taken care of, to the fullest extent that we're required to do so. And then on the infrastructure side, again, it's a little bit of the same thing. I do think, understanding your local community and the type of infrastructure maybe they have or they don't have, right? What, will the poles, hold underneath weight of fiber, or if you wanted to bring in a wireless carrier as well, are there replacement costs, or what kind of network are you building? But I think one thing we always look to try and get or try and work with the local community is a master permit, right? Being able to deploy and build a network as quickly as possible, again, to minimize that community disruption, make sure that people are getting the service that they deserve as quickly as possible. So going into a community and saying, we'll obviously let you know where we're going and when we're going, but to not have to file an individual permit for every street, because that will slow us down. That will keep crews out longer. It will increase costs. It will delay time that we can actually provide your citizens and residents with this service.
Drew, just so you know, you appear to be muted.
William, you have a shovel in the back of your office there.
Yes.
What is the reason for the shovel?
So the reason for the shovel is we broke ground on our first project a little over a year ago, building 105 miles up in the panhandle of Florida. And so that's the ceremonial shovel from that project. So, it was a momentous occasion for our company, both at our level plus the enterprise as well. And so keep it here as a memento of where we've come from and more work we have to do.
And is that a little windmill there too? Does it turn? Can you spin that for us?
Yeah, it does. It does turn. It is from a project I worked on out in Wyoming. So as there's others under my desk that I keep in a box. This one, there's all from various states and various jurisdictions and different types of off takers, and so but this one worked with a close friend of mine. There were various issues that we dealt with and were able to solve, and I think that's one thing that we excel at and we work really hard to do here at our company, is provide the solution, right? Don't take no, get to yes. And so I keep that one. That's a little more of a special place in my heart, I guess. And also, there's not enough room to fit all the ones we did. So,
well, and there's certainly not room to fit a big tower,
no.
big tower. Well, listen, the hour has flown by. For my last question, I want to ask you, William. You know, you're from New York. You're a New Yorker. You're now in Florida, the great state of Florida, at least 6 months of the year. And you've obviously been. You said I think 46 or 47 or maybe even 48 states that NextEra's got projects. So you've been to a lot of places. What are your thoughts about the way both the Infrastructure Act, but also, you know, again, the smart green energy provisions of Inflation Reduction Act, how are these going to help us get internet access for all in America? What are your thoughts on what we want to achieve through these programs and how NextEra will contribute to that?
Yeah, I think it's leveraging the capital that those acts will spur to be deployed, and leveraging that to piggyback the fiber builds and the fiber extensions from those projects into communities that are unserved and underserved. And then also, obviously, with IIJA and the BEAD funding, you know, working with the states, making sure that, you know, the applications that we put in are sound, they're well thought out, well planned, so that we can then help the state allocate funds elsewhere as we help them expand to reach as many people in their states as possible.
William, it's been a pleasure to spend this hour with you. I want to remind all of our guests here in the broadband community that there will be an Ask Me Anything with Jason Rudin, the founder of CLAD, on October 27th. And there will be a Ask Me Anything session with Josh Broder, the CEO of Tilson, on November 3rd. On behalf of all those in the broadband community and William, it's been a pleasure to have you with us this hour. Take care.
Drew, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye all.
Bye.